Awesome, guys. How's it going? Is this your first Comic-Con?
No. I've been to a bunch in San Diego and a bunch here in New York, too. Actually, this is my second one in New York, but a bunch in San Diego, yeah.
My first with a show. I've only come as a fan, so this is exciting to be on the other side.
It's weird for him not to be in cosplay
right now. Exactly. This is cosplay. This is a producer cosplay. Yeah, exactly.
You go. No, I like you seem so into it. Go for it.
Okay, so the two things that struck me watching this is, number one, it's not an anthology. It's an episodic show.
Yeah.
And two, it does have a much different feel than the original Goosebumps. Was that all intentional?
Totally. I mean, obviously there was the book series that we grew up loving, then there was a television series, then there were 2 different movies, so we definitely wanted ours to feel different and feel like it had a place that hadn't been tread on before by the others. So yeah, we aged it up. The kids usually in the books were middle school, we aged it up to high school. We wanted it to be a show that adults could watch, that kids could watch, that adults with kids could watch all together, but really wanted it to be surprising and different. Yeah, that was the intention.
I was going to say, we did, for the first half of the season, the first 5 episodes, we did draw from 5 different books. So it's kind of a pseudo anthology. We follow the story in the books, but we're also following these teenagers as they get to know each other. And then halfway through the season, they kind of come together. And then we lose pulling from books directly, and we pull from a bunch of the Goosebumps books. There's Easter eggs throughout the whole back half of the season. Okay. A little bit of a hybrid.
Yeah, totally. But it was important that it feel kind of premium and keep you watching and on the edge of your seat as opposed to standalone episodes. And it helped with character development too. We've got a great cast of kids that really gelled and had great sort of chemistry right out of the gates. So to be able to dig into that episode by episode and give real arcs and growth there was important also. Yeah.
How do you guys figure out the tone? Because you want it to be fun, like you said, you want kids, you want adults. So how do you balance the different genres when you're putting something like this together?
The original books were actually very funny. So, everyone remembers how scary they were, but they were very funny too. R.L. Stine always had a punchline at the end of every chapter, because right when things were getting too tense, he just wanted to temper that a little bit. So we knew it was always going to be a comedy thriller for us. And we found that comedy and horror actually follow a lot of the same cadences. There's a lead up and then a punchline, and then a lead up and a jump scare. And so we knew that going in, they'd be going back and forth. We just wanted to subvert expectations a little bit, where when you're expecting a punchline, there's a jump scare, and when you're expecting a scare, there's a punchline. And that's what we tried to do from the writing into the shooting, into the editing, the entire way.
And the casting, frankly. Like Justin Long, for example, who is amazing with comedy and also with drama. His resume kind of speaks for itself. So to build around him and him set the bar of being very funny, very scary, and then the kids, who are mostly newcomers, I think they'll be unfamiliar faces generally to an audience, but all of them just came with great timing and really over-delivered in an excellent way. Yeah.
Did you find that once you went through the casting process, or while you were going through the casting process, can you talk about what qualities you were looking for, and when you found your cast, did something about them take you back to the character?
Absolutely,
for sure. Yeah.
Affects how you saw the character.
Yeah, Rob and Nick, who created the show, wrote these characters knowing that once we actually cast the actors, they were going to rewrite them based on the actors. So we went through hundreds of auditions to find these kids who were real, authentic, and of the age group, and they brought a lot of their own personality to the roles. And so after that, we kind of tailored the roles to them, which is why they kind of feel so real in the show, because there's nothing like a bunch of 40-somethings writing for high school kids that people can see right through, that you just want to avoid as much as possible.
No, and it was just paramount that it feel like an authentic high school experience. So yeah, these kids are younger folks in our writers' room as well, but especially the actors who are teens and early 20s, brought their experience to us. They were telling us no kids would say that, or adding some lingo themselves. So yeah, they were very instrumental in shaping how the characters turned out, for sure.
Fun fact, you're talking about R.L. Stine's books being funny. He also wrote the novel adaptation for Spaceballs as Jovial Bob Stein.
No way.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Now you did. Dude, I just stumped the Goosebumps.
That's an excellent tidbit, yeah.
I'm going to go tell people that now as if I knew it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's my plan for us.
He also
For
wrote
sure.
101 jokes for kids. You probably saw those when you were growing up.
Yeah. He's very prolific. He's still writing. I mean,
crazy.
it's insane. Yeah.
Were you guys who grew up on the books? I mean, I think we all did. But
Yeah, for sure.
What was your experience like? What was like an experience like reading them as a kid when you were like, oh wow, like do you remember?
Yeah, well, every time that Scholastic pamphlet went out to schools, I remember everyone circling that, clamoring for that. And so, yeah, I mean, it was the first book series that made reading feel fun to me as opposed to a task or homework. And my 11-year-old daughter is actually now diving in as well. So she's experiencing the same books that I read 30 years ago for the first time, which is pretty excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had an older sister, and I used to read everything she did. So she would read the Goosebumps books, then I would steal them, and I would read them. And I always felt like I was taking a part in something that was a little bit too old for me, that I felt like I was going to get in trouble if I got caught reading them. So I think everyone reading Goosebumps books for the first time feels like it's a little too scary, and I think that's the brilliance behind them.
Now, was there an element from growing up on the books that you wanted to bring to the show, and what was that, or some homage to the books that you put in? You said like the first 5 episodes of the show.
Well, I mean, just tonally and sort of zooming out big picture, R.L. Stine has said that it was important to him that the books never talked down to the young readers. And so that was the case for us as well. We wanted it to remain elevated, to not feel like we were pandering to the kids, that we were still entertaining the adults. So yeah, that was sort of front of mind for us, was just keeping with that, never talking down. That Stine had in the series, yeah.
And the show takes place in high school, which all of us went to high school, and it's the weirdest, awkwardest, messiest time. So I think we brought a lot of our own high school experiences to it too. So less from the specific books and more from weirdness of being a high school kid trying to ask someone out on a date and being rejected, and how that feels even more horrifying than a possessed teacher sometimes. So we brought all those experiences to the show too.
So I'm a little older than you guys. My daughter grew up loving Goosebumps, loved the original show and everything. When you're producing something like this and you want to appeal to a young audience, and it's a horror story, where do you draw that line on, okay, this won't work for a young audience?
Well, it was definitely tricky and always front of mind, and Disney was actually super helpful in setting that line and making sure that we were getting as close to it as possible without ever crossing it. So for us, the scares had to be tension driven and never gore or blood driven, and the jokes frankly had to be a little more clever, because we couldn't get too edgy, or certainly not curses, things like that. So yeah, it was a delicate dance, but one that Hillary Winston, our showrunner, Rob and Nick, our creators, did an excellent job of sort of setting the tone and keeping it all the way through. Yeah.
Kids are smart. I mean, even R.L. Stine said this with the books. They like horror, but they know when to draw the line for themselves. They know when it's too intense, they'll step away. And so I think we had that in mind when doing, the horror was like, let's not make it too intense for everyone, but they're smart, they're savvy, they know when it's too much. I don't think we went there too much, but I think we hit the right level with it.
Totally.
And do you envision the story evolving around this set of teenagers, or is it more connected to the high school or the high school experience, or is it more like the Justin Long character? Where do you, how is it?
Yeah, I mean, we feel truly like we lucked out with this cast, and again, their chemistry is just outstanding right out of the gate. So we'd love to tell many more stories drawn from many more books with this same group. Yeah.
We haven't talked about a season 2 yet, but we'd be dumb if we didn't use the same people that we already had, because it's hard to cast a show, especially one like this.
Exactly.
Cool.
Just to wrap up, guys.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Thanks so much, gang.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers. Really nice